Do you know who I am? I'm kind of a big deal.
Welcome to Overtime with Dr. Michael Jacobs. I'm Chip Franklin. Of course, Dr. Jacobs, as you know, and if you will hopefully watch us on Bmore Sports Pod on YouTube and the Bmore Sports Baseball Podcast, has a wider knowledge than just athletes and their physical issues along the way. But obviously, you're around the game a lot. And, you know, it's funny. People ask me, what's my favorite sport? And it's always baseball. Golf is a close second, but there's something about baseball. And ironically, the thing that people criticize the most is the thing I love the most about baseball. I love the fact that it's 162 games and it's a slow evolution. The Orioles just gave up the season essentially because people said there's no way they're going to come back, even though they're only 8 games under 500. It was unlikely they would, so they weren't buyers. I don't know. To me, I just love the pace of the game. What about you? And you've been close to it for so long. What is the one thing that draws you into it?
Well, there's only a few sports like baseball where you can always come back. There's no clock.
Right.
And given
there is now, but a different kind of clock, right?
Given the world of dealing with pressure like golf and other things, in the sports where you can run the clock out, it's just not fair. In baseball, it's unusual, but you can score 10 runs in the 9th inning. Tennis is the same way. I love tennis because how many times I've seen the greats like Djokovic, Federer, Nadal, they're down a set 4-1 and they look lost and they just kind of look around and go, I've had enough of this nonsense. And they just hit the gas and roll the guy.
Tennis reminds me, you mentioned that. Tennis reminds me of soccer, in that in soccer, if you're really pushing but you can't score, and hockey too, you're vulnerable because you put so much into that. In tennis, the guy that you just can't close. You know, and I've seen those guys. That's the kind of, I'm a bad tennis player, but I concentrated on just making you lose instead of me beating you, you know?
You can see the number of people who just have to serve out a game and they can't do it. They know it's not going to happen. And in baseball, there's an element of that. The other thing about baseball is it's a team sport. And as has been said many, many times, if you hit 300, you fail 2 out of 3 times.
Yeah.
So even the great hitters failed 2 out of 3 times. And it's only a few times that history allows them to match up the moment with their skill, if you know. I still remember the year the Nationals won the World Series. They were down to their last out, and then like an 18-year-old, 19-year-old Soto came up. And I looked at him, and I go, he's going to get a hit. Just look at him. I mean, he couldn't wait. You could see from his presentation that he could not wait to get in the box, and he crushed a single, and that turned the game around.
Yeah, you know, there's always been guys like that. I was talking about this last night to a friend of mine who's not a huge baseball fan, but I was talking about Mookie Betts and how he reminded me so much of Derek Jeter and a lot of players in baseball that not some, you know, I'm a fan of Tony Gwynn and a huge fan of Ripken, but there were guys that were just kind of scrappy. That, you know, you knew they weren't going to go deep probably on you, but you definitely did not want them up in a critical situation in a game, just because they just knew how to get it done. And Jeter it comes to mind mostly, but Pedroia. There's always a guy on a team like that makes that situation happen. And you know, when you talk to these guys, did they have that thing in real life, or was it just in between the lines?
Alomar, who is clearly the greatest second baseman ever during a 10-year span, was like that. You want to hit homer, you get a homer. You want a double, you get a double. You want a stolen base? I mean, he even bunted on his own in our playoff game because we were having trouble getting guys over at the scoring position. And Davey was mad he bunted, but Robbie was telling me, hey, we had to get him in second scoring position. He would intentionally even get to 2 strikes to get a pitch he wanted. And if he saw they were playing at the pole, he'd just flip a ball the other way. There are transcendental guys like that. And there's so many great moments in baseball.
You mentioned 2 strike guys. Tony Gwynn is the number one, has the highest average of people with 2 strikes by 20 points over other people. There's something about this game, and you played baseball as a kid growing up, right? Yeah. So you know that, like, there's the guy that wants to be up in that situation, and then there's the rest of us that are like, shit, I don't want to strike out with the bases loaded in the bottom of the 9th inning, you know?
There's no question about that. And I was going to say, sometimes the stars line up, whether it was Millie Mays' catch in the World in 54, I guess it was, which by his own admission was not his greatest catch, but sure looked that way. And one of the greatest plays I ever saw is, if you run the tape back on YouTube, is when Edgar Martinez doubled to knock out the Yankees. And it was in the Kingdome. And Griffey was on first base. The Kingdome was small. It had a carpet. It was fast. And Edgar hit that ball. And I think Sam Perlazzo was the third base coach, if I'm not mistaken. And I mean, Griffey took off like he wasn't touching the ground. And whether the third base coach held him up or not, there's no way he should have scored on that ball, because it rocketed off the wall. And his feet never touched the ground. And he just said, "I'm scoring," and willed himself into the plate. It's one of the greatest plays I've ever seen. And it's just a guy, as soon as that ball's hit, he said, "I'm scoring."
It's funny. I don't know if you saw.
You ought to watch it. It's incredible that he scored on that play.
There are so many weird things that come up. This happened to Kittredge the other night, had a perfect inning. There's only been 120 perfect innings in Major League history. And he had one. And Kittredge is not the kind of guy for a perfect inning. For those who don't know, is 3 outs on 9 pitches. Right. And the thing about that is that you generally, it's guys at blazing speed, which Kittredge doesn't have, and he actually got a couple swings on balls that weren't strikes, which is exactly what Palmer always used to say, right? Get ahead on strikes, get him out on balls. It fascinates me when those numbers come up and these things pop up, because it's a sport with 140 years. I mean, Mason Miller just the other night gave up a home run to the Diamondbacks. And he threw it. It was off a 104-mile-an-hour pitch. And since they've been recording speeds with radar guns, that's the and I'm sure nobody else has ever hit a home run off a 104-mile-an-hour pitch. That's just crazy. I mean, to see that, to see guys that do this, like the Padres also had a guy that struck out 13 straight guys over 3 games. That's a major league record.
Well, 2 things. One is Kittredge today was in the paper that actually Kittredge threw the same 3 pitches to all 3 guys.
Oh, did he really?
It was 2 sinkers in the slider, 2 sinkers in the slider, 2 sinkers in the slider. And as for the home run, I don't think they charted that, but I got to tell you, I think the Pine Tar George Brett home run off Gossage, that could have been 104 miles an hour too, as well as how fast Brett came out of the dugout when the umpire ruled him out for having too much pine tar on the bat. Okay, because I think he was moving 104 miles an hour and raising his hands over his head. But that ball went in fast and went out fast. Okay.
Bordick told a story in the Adam Jones. If you guys get a check out the latest Adam Jones Bmore Sports podcast. And he was talking about how that in the home run that Fernandez hit in the 97 playoffs for Cleveland to beat us off Armando Benitez, that Hargrove, who was the manager of the Indians, I think at the time, right? Yeah. He said they were picking up the pitches, and that they had a 3-run homer off him earlier in the series on a slider, and then they knew Fernandez knew a slider was coming. And you know what? Remember his nickname, Mike Hargrove?
Who, Grover?
Well, no, he was human rain delay.
He was a human, but so was the pitcher Leonard too. There's not Leonard, but a couple human rain delays.
Well, no, but Hargrove was a batter who took.
Yeah, I know that.
Today, of course, yeah, that wouldn't happen.
He's a very nice person, because I worked with him. And first of all, that whole series was really strange in that the number of fantastic fielding plays was off the chart. And in the next series, the Indians made a bunch of errors. And the other thing is that the sad part about that is the scouting report on Grissom was that he can't hit a good fastball anymore, which happened to be Armando's best pitch. And for some reason, we threw him 3 straight sliders, and he finally caught up with the 3rd one. That was one of the more difficult games to watch for us. Earlier in that game, Manny booted a ball. We should have scored another run, but Manny Ramirez booted the ball, and we didn't take the run. It was a difficult series to lose. I got to tell you, that was a good team.
I saw a couple interviews recently with some interesting stats. I don't know if you knew this one. Mazeroski's famous home run against the Yankees playing for the Pirates.
I saw that as a kindergartner. I came home from school. It was about 4:00 in the afternoon. The bus got us in there.
1960, right?
1960. At that point in the game, it was about 4:00. I came home, turned on the black and white Zenith, And there was Ralph Terry, and you could see number 8 Yogi looking up at the Ivy wall at Forbes Field, and Mazeroski hit that home run.
So a kid caught that ball, and the back then they didn't go after the ball like they do today. So the officials, he got out of the building. A lot of his friends knew it. The next day he played baseball with the ball. Somebody hit it in the woods, and they can never find it. And they had the story. The guy's wife is still alive, and she wasn't. They weren't married at the time. He was a young kid. He was like 5 or 6, and so he lost the baseball. When you look at, like, I went to 2131 and had great seats. I paid $600 for a ticket, Doc, right behind home plate, 6 rows behind home plate. On my left was Magnum PI. What's his name? Tom Selleck. On my right was James Carville. And so they're talking across me. So I said, "You guys want to sit in that?" So I pulled out, and they two of them sat. You couldn't have more politically opposite guys, but they were enjoying the game. It was, when I talk about experiences, I've never experienced, and I doubt I will ever experience anything like what was going on that night in that ballpark. And of course, me being the capitalist I am, I went and I bought like 20 people's tickets, and I still have them to this day. I have a ticket to Ripken's first game. I have a ticket to 2130. I have a ticket to 2131, and I was at 2162 just by luck. Because remember, that wasn't advertised. Nobody knew.
Well, that's because that game was played at the wrong time, because during that season we were covering a game, and there was a railroad derailment underground near Camden Yards, and there were some toxic fumes letting out. So that game was immediately canceled. In a somewhat Fellini-like movie scene, the players just walked out of the stadium because they didn't want to be exposed.
Wow.
They climbed over the rails, walked up the aisles in their baseball uniforms and spikes, and a lot of them just ran to their hotels because there was concern about the fumes from a tanker truck that derailed underground near Camden Yards.
Yeah.
And as a result, the last game of that season was pushed back to accommodate that. So that game became kind of a non-scheduled game.
Well, here's how we knew, because we were in our seats, and before I noticed that Ripken wasn't at third, Ryan, what was his name, was there? Ryan Miner, who's
had a
passed
twin
away.
brother. He died recently, Ryan Miner.
Yeah. So, but what we did, instead of noticing him, I noticed that I think it was the Yankees who were playing, if I'm not mistaken. The whole Yankee team was up on the top step applauding.
Oh, they did that. Everybody did. I mean,
this is not like a momentous game in that he's just ending the streak voluntarily because there's too much pressure. And, 2162 is good enough, Cal. But that whole approach to, you remember his last game, right? Which was it was intended to be, his last game was going to be in Yankee Stadium, but because of 9/11, it was at Camden Yards. And it was a surreal. There were snipers all over the roof, and we were sitting on in the flag court on those temporary seats they built in there. And people don't know. I don't know how many people know this, but it was the pitcher was like, I want to say it was Urbina, if that rings a bell. And Brady was up, and Cal was on deck at the end of the game. Under normal circumstances, you walk Brady, right? You don't throw a strike to Brady, but instead he struck Brady out, and Cal ended up, on deck. And first thing he did, Brady was so upset as he walked away. He said something to him like, "It's okay, man. It's okay." He was saying, this is what I heard Anderson do this in an interview. Brady left the ballpark in his uniform. He didn't even take a shower. He changed his shoes, walked out, got in his car and split. He was so upset so that's one of those things that pitcher should have known. The manager should have come out. Buck understood it when he let Jeter bat and get his final walk-off hit in Yankee Stadium in his last appearance. He should have walked him, but he let him bat because he understood it. It's interesting to see the people that get it. The guys that, allow a guy to steal with a 10-run lead, or, do you swing at 3-0 when you're ahead by 5 or 6, 8 runs? I don't know what the rules are anymore, because teams do come back from, we saw a 9-0 game recently. I think it was the Athletics came back from. So I don't know. Some of those old rules still apply,
By the way, it was like Denny McClain threw a cookie to Mickey Mantle, I think, in his last at bat, and got some grief for it. I think they told Mick what was coming, and he threw him kind of a room surface fastball. But no, the rule, I remember Canseco wanted to be 30-30 or 40-40, and he stole a bunch of meaningless bases. Before when that went on, I saw Willie Mays and Mickey Mantle on various shows saying, geez, we could have done that multiple times if we wanted to, but you just didn't do it back then.
Yeah.
Willie Mays could have done 30 times practically, but you just didn't do it back then. And the game, it's a Me Too world. We've had this societal discussion. It's a whole different, the kids are different. The internet's different. The records are crazy. And on the flip side, we're talking about records that'll never be broken. I mean, if you go back to the late 60s, early 70s, you probably can find 30 pitchers who have more complete games in the entire league.
Yeah.
Okay. And that'll never happen. You're not going to get people getting complete games or getting the strikeouts that the guys got back then because they don't pitch that long.
And you know what else has changed, Doc, is that people are betting on it. And there's a lot of money on whether or not they make this steal or if they swing on a 3-0 pitch to get a hit. And, the players hear it. People are yelling them from the stands. I got money on it. It's funny. What was the last game I went to? And I set up close enough, a Padres game. And I'm down there and I hear this guy yelling at Tatis going, Tatis, I got $50 tonight that you're going to get a hit in the first 2 at bats. And Tatis did this thing like, he just turned to him like, you yelled that? And apparently, I've talked to a couple of the some of the coaches and some of the people that cover the game. And, actually, I talked to a scout I sat next to with the whole radar gun and everything. And he said exactly what you said. Totally different game now.
I think gambling is this gambling is a disease. And considering baseball,
literally,
where it clearly says inside there's no gambling, and yet gambling services are advertised by MLB. It's outrageous.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And it's a social problem that, we grew up as the World War II kids whose parents fought the Germans and the Japanese and lived through a lot of different things. And these kids today are all on a whole different world. And look at the salaries they're making. How can, they just live in a different world. In fact, just yesterday, Svitolova, one of the tennis players who's in a mixed marriage, she lost a tennis match and got all these evil threatening and semi-death threats on her Instagram from people. So it's a crazy world and it's regrettable.
Hey, I want to remind everybody, if you have some funny stuff that you think we don't know about, you can send it to us at Bmore Sports Pod. That's bmoresportspod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear it. We'll talk about it coming up in the future. That is Dr. Michael Jacobs, former Orioles physician. I'm Chip Franklin. This is another edition of Overtime. Can't wait till next time.
Do you know who I am? I'm kind of a big deal.